If it's not specifically a hunting shotgun, it's probably not safe and clear. All right, we got some really bad news today regarding a bill that was actually signed into law. This is something that when I first read it, I thought to myself, no, Reno, you're being crazy. It's not what you think it is. It's not that bad. It isn't exactly what you think it is. Well, what I thought it was a potential ban on the sale of firearms parts and accessories. And what it appears to be is essentially what is going to be in practice a ban on the sale online and then additional restrictions in person on the sale of firearms accessories. Now, these accessories are going to include things like triggers, magwells, fixed magazine devices like the AR Maglock and Kingpin. This is going to be extended mag releases. This is going to include firearms manufacturing devices and tools designed for assembling and manufacturing firearms. It is that bad. It is probably worse in practice. It's going to be worse in practice than I was initially thinking. After talking to some people that are in the know, this is going to be really bad. It's worse than I thought, to be honest. In practice, this is going to be worse than I thought. So no one's really talking about this. So if you know someone in California or a firearms dealer or anything like that, let them know about this, because this is going to be going into effect, I believe, on January 1st of this year. This has kind of flown under the radar. My bad on not talking about this sooner. We will see what the DOJ ends up defining some of these things as, but it ain't going to be good. That is for sure, folks. So send this to a friend, buckle up, maybe grab some coffee, grab something to drink, use the restroom first, put this up on the big screen. Okay, now before we get into this nightmare story that is this law, I do want to say thank you to the sponsor of this channel, and it is Delete Me. Delete Me is a service that goes online, monitors your personal information, and helps make it significantly easier for you to keep your information off the internet. Chances are, if you were to Google your name and maybe just any little thing about yourself, you would find your name, your address, your spouse's or kid's name and address, all of your phone numbers, everywhere that you've worked. A surprising amount of information is just one quick Google search away on all of the front page of Google on all those white pages websites. Delete Me makes it significantly easier, saving you a lot of time and potential risk of harassment or threats from online threats that want to make their way into the real world. I've been paying for Delete Me for probably 4 years now, and they reached out to sponsor me a while back, and I was super excited because I've been paying for the service for a long time, and now I get to tell all of you about it. So check out Delete Me, use the code and the link in the description to support me. If you use the code and the link in the description, you'll save a little bit of money, and it'll help me by showing Delete Me that you are interested in what I have to offer you. If you use the code and the link in the description and the pinned comment, you will save a little bit of money, and it shows support to me. Delete Me knows that you are interested in it. Delete Me is a huge supporter. If you want to save a whole lot of time protecting yourself from online threats, use the code and the link in the description to support me. So when we look at this bill, AB1263, this is a law. Again, this was proposed by Assemblymember Gibson, and it was signed by Gavin Newsom. This is a law that is going into effect on January 1st. When you first read this, you're thinking, oh, this is a ban on the ghost gunner, the ban on the use of 3D printers. That's not that big of a deal. That's part of it, and those things suck. But there's a whole lot more to this. Let's go over some definitions first so we can get into this. Ammunition, obvious definition. Firearm, obvious definition. The first definition that really matters and that concerns me is firearm accessory. It means an attachment or device designed or adapted to be inserted into, affixed onto, or used in conjunction with a firearm that is designed, intended, or functions to increase a firearm's rate of fire or increase the speed at which a person may reload a firearm or replace the magazine, or any other attachment or device described in Penal Code Section 30515 of the Penal Code that may render a firearm an assault weapon when inserted into, affixed onto. So any device, any firearm accessory that can increase the rate of fire, triggers, super safeties, even just your Geisley, your Rise armament, that's going to be a firearm accessory that increases the speed at which a person may increase the speed at which you can shoot. When it comes to increase the speed at which you may reload a firearm or replace the magazine, could a magwell be included in that? That's the main thing that they're advertised to do, right? Could an extended magazine release be included in that? That's the main thing they're advertised to be able to do. Could a AR Maglock and Kingpin setup, a Hogue Freedom Fighter, a Juggernaut Tactical, the Clever Co, Pin Pal, could any of those be considered that it increases the speed at which you can replace the firearm or reload the firearm. And then any other attachment described in Penal Code Section 30515. That's your hand guards, your barrel shrouds, your threaded barrels, your flash hiders, your pistol grips, your vertical foregrips, your telescoping stocks, your thumb hole stocks, your forward pistol grips. All those things are considered assault weapon features in 30515. That's concerning. So the term firearm accessory also includes any other device, tool, kit, or part set that is clearly designed and intended for use in the manufacturing of firearms. Gun tools. Firearm tools are likely going to be considered a firearms accessory. Woof. That's a lot of things. And now we'll talk about the specificity of what conduct is being banned when it comes to these firearm accessories later. Now, a firearm-related product means a firearm ammunition, firearm precursor part, firearm component, or firearm manufacturing machine, and a firearm accessory that meets any of the following conditions. If it's sold in the state of California or distributed, made in the state of California, the item is intended to be sold or distributed in California, the item is or was possessed in California, and it was reasonably foreseeable that the item would be possessed in California. Any one of those things means it's a firearm-related product. Reasonable controls means the reasonable procedures, acts, and practices are designed, implemented, and enforced to do the following. Reasonable controls is going to be further defined, most likely, by the Department of Justice, but those reasonable controls, they're not going to be so reasonable. So, prevent the sale of distribution of firearms-related product to a straw purchaser, firearm trafficker, a person prohibited from possessing a firearm under state or federal law, or a person or firearm industry member has the reasonable cause to believe that is a substantial risk of using a firearm-related product to harm themselves or others, of possessing or using a firearm-related product unlawfully. So generally it's already illegal to conduct a straw purchase, and then if you're suspecting, you're supposed to kind of not let straw purchases happen, and if you're knowingly letting a straw purchase happen, I think you can already be charged for that, but it adds some additional stuff there. Another reasonable control is prevent the loss or theft of a firearm-related product from the firearm industry member, and ensure that the firearm industry member complies with all the provisions of California and federal law and does not otherwise promote the unlawful manufacture, sale, possession, marketing, or use of a firearm-related product. Okay, that's what the reasonable controls are here. We'll see what the DOJ ends up further defining some of this conduct later on when they put out potentially some sort of bulletin. Okay, so now, that firearm industry member shall comply with the firearm industry standard of conduct. It shall be a violation of the firearm industry standard of conduct for a firearm industry member to fail to comply with any requirement of this section. So let's talk about that. B is a firearm industry member shall do both of the following. Establish, implement, and enforce reasonable controls. We defined that up here. And take reasonable precautions to ensure that any of the downstream members or distributors or retailers of the firearm-related product shall have their own reasonable controls. So if you're the firearm industry member, you both have to have reasonable controls, and then you have to make sure anyone downstream of you is also establishing those reasonable controls. And you have to take reasonable precautions. Okay, so do we have to do like a background check on this person and check up and audit them periodically? That's crazy. A firearm industry member shall not manufacture, market, import, offer for wholesale sale, or offer for retail sale a firearm-related product that is abnormally dangerous and likely to create an unreasonable risk of harm to public safety and public health and safety in California. For the purposes of this subdivision, the following shall apply. So for C, a firearm-related product shall not be considered abnormally dangerous and likely to create an unreasonable risk of harm to public health and safety based on a firearm's inherent capacity to cause injury or lethal harm. No worries, right? Just because it's a gun, it's not going to be considered unreasonably or abnormally dangerous, right? No, that's just not how it works. It's never how it works. Anytime you're thinking, oh, maybe it's not that bad, it is that bad. Now, there shall be a presumption that a firearm-related product is abnormally dangerous and likely to create an unreasonable risk of harm to public health and safety if any of the following is true. The firearm-related products features render the product most suitable for assaultive purposes instead of lawful self-defense, hunting, or other legitimate sport and recreational activities. How do we see that being argued in court currently? Well, any firearm law that is trying to be upheld, the Department of Justice argues in the court of law that whatever gun, whatever feature, whatever it is so dangerous that it should be banned. I mean, the Glock ban just went through, right? Like every gun is gonna be considered abnormally dangerous. So if it's not specifically a hunting shotgun, it's probably not safe and clear. Now, I'm doom and gloom right here, but we got to think about this, like, what are they actually going to argue in the courts, right? Now, the other option is the firearm-related product is designed, sold, or marketed in a manner that foreseeably promotes conversion of legal firearm-related products into illegal firearm-related products. We just recently saw the DOJ send a cease and desist to Flip Defense for a grip, a featureless grip that could be converted to a normal pistol grip. Now, it's only advertised and marketed and intended to be used in that normal pistol grip configuration when legal to do so, but clearly the DOJ disagreed, right? Now, this is the real part that's going to prevent online sellers from really going through with this blue section here. Prior to completing the sale or delivery in California to a California resident of a firearm accessory or firearm manufacturing machine, or of a firearm barrel unattached to a firearm industry member shall comply with all of the following requirements. So, if they want to sell the accessory, the barrel, or the manufacturing machine, or the tools for firearms manufacturer, they first have to do the following. The firearm industry member shall provide a prospective purchaser with a clear and conspicuous notice of the information provided in paragraph 2. That's here. We'll get to that. The firearm industry member shall receive an acknowledgement from the prospective purchaser attesting that the prospective purchaser received and understands the notice provided in paragraph 2. This is something that we've seen companies like Primary Arms have to do in the past. So basically what this is looking like is the online seller is going to have to provide some sort of information. The online seller is then going to have to receive an acknowledgement from the buyer. Okay? That's 2 extra levels of things that are going to have to happen before you actually can get something ordered and sent to your house. Then, the firearm industry member shall require the prospective purchaser to provide proof of age and identity, verifying that the prospective purchaser is at least 18 years of age. So then you're going to have to provide your ID just to initially get something sent to your house. I don't foresee very many places online going through with this and even having the resources to implement this sort of policy. So your online sales are probably done. It's probably going to have to go to an FFL who is then going to have to do these things, right? Now, this is what paragraph 2 is. The notice described in paragraph 1 shall clearly notify the prospective purchaser that it is generally a crime in California to engage in any of the following conduct without a valid license to manufacture firearms. Talks about manufacturing firearms in the state of California, blah, 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 blah. Like, obviously, like we already probably know that it's illegal to do all these things. This is where it gets to, for the online part, that it's even in practice, me specifically, I actually wouldn't be able to comply with this currently. For shipment and delivery of a firearm barrel, firearm accessory, or firearm manufacturing machine, the firearm industry member shall do all of the following. Ensure all packages are conspicuously labeled with the words signature and proof of identification of person aged 18 years or older or older required for delivery. They then also have to ensure that the shipping instructions list an address that matches the purchaser's identification. My current identification for California does not have my current address. Am I going to have to get it shipped to my old house that I don't live at anymore? I don't know. Require the purchaser, upon delivery, to present a courier with proof of identification and the purchaser's signature in order to receive the item. So it's going to cost more now just to ship it, in addition to adding all these layers of things that the online seller has to do. You're not going to find many places that are willing to do this. We will see if places like Brownells or Primary Arms are willing to do this. They might have the infrastructure in place to do this sort of thing. Now, the subdivision does not apply to the sale or delivery of a firearm barrel, firearm accessory, or firearm manufacturing machine to any of the following: an FFL, an ammunition vendor, a member of the armed forces while on duty and acting within the scope and course of deployment, or any law enforcement agency or law enforcement officer while on duty and acting within the scope and course of employment. So cops, once again, cops are exempt. I'm not bashing on cops. I want people to be very clear with this. I'm not bashing on cops for being exempt from it. It's just annoying that our legislature views us as lesser people. Digital manufacturing code means any of the following, and it's basically talking about all the stuff that could be used to produce firearms or firearms accessories. And then it kind of gets into this. A civil action may be brought against a person who knowingly does either of the following: distributes or causes to be distributed by any means, including the internet, any digital firearm manufacturing code to any other person in this state who is not a federally licensed firearms manufacturer, member of the armed forces or National Guard while on duty acting within the scope and course of deployment, or any law enforcement agency or forensic laboratory. Is that tracking for you? Civil action can get brought to you if you online distribute or cause to be distributed any of this digital manufacturing firearm code. Okay, now here's a section that I'm really concerned about. 29186. It is unlawful to knowingly or willfully cause another person to engage in the unlawful manufacture of firearms, or to knowingly or willfully aid, abet, promote, or facilitate the unlawful manufacture of firearms. In the past, I have made videos talking about firearms that you can build in the state of California that maybe due to a law change you can no longer do. That information is floating around on the internet. I can never get rid of it. If someone unlawfully manufactures a firearm in a way that they can no longer legally do so, but in the past I've talked about this and that information is still floating around and I can't get rid of it, or I didn't know that it was still up, am I going to be screwed? I don't know. I've definitely talked about using 3D printers and how you could use those to manufacture firearms. I've never advocated for breaking the law, but the manufacturer of any firearm using a three-dimensional printer or computer numerical code milling machine by an individual who is not a licensed manufacturer pursuant to California law. So then this is the other big one. The manufacturer of any of the following. So if I were to knowingly or willfully encourage or promote or facilitate is really the biggest one, because if I'm talking about things theoretically, am I knowingly or willingly facilitating this? Now, if they were to manufacture assault weapons, if I talk about a pistol grip and then someone puts a pistol grip on a gun that can't legally have a pistol grip, did I break the law? Short-barreled rifles or short-barreled shotguns? I've literally made videos on guns that fit the state's definition but then are exempt. Unsafe handguns? Could I get busted for talking about how I modified my Glock and now it's no longer the exact configuration that's on the roster? Because is that technically an unsafe handgun? So here's the part that's kind of concerning. Encouraging someone to make a firearm or weapon designed as a generally prohibited weapon. Okay, what does that even mean? What is a generally prohibited weapon? Well, there's a lot of things in here. A lot of these things are directly related to my AOW video in the state of California. Something that was legal at the time. But if I cause you to make one of these and you didn't follow all of the rules because it wasn't clear enough to you, and then you relied on my video even though I'm saying it's not legal advice, could I get in trouble for that? It kind of seems like it. Anyways, I know that was a long one, but my big concern out of all of this is that this bill is written in such a way that it's going to be very difficult to comply with as an online retailer. And the moral of the story is, if you're in the state of California and you want firearms parts currently, it could be time to panic. Like, it could be right now. The time could be now for you to just start panicking. I'm kidding. Because as of January 1st, all of your parts are going to become significantly more difficult for you to acquire. So if you had something that's on your list and you have the money, it might be time to just go ahead and do that now, right? Because if it can increase the rate of fire or the speed at which you can reload the gun, it's going to get a lot more difficult, and it's going to be so vaguely written that a lot of companies are just going to stop the sale of probably anything in the state of California. Anyways, if I'm wrong about any of this, I will most certainly own up to that and make a clarification video. I hope that I'm wrong about this stuff, but unfortunately it does not seem like I am, which is suboptimal. You guys know the drill. Have fun, be safe, stay dangerous. Peace. If you use the code and the link in the description and the pinned comment, you will save a little bit of money and it shows support to me. Delete Me knows that you are interested in it. Delete Me is a huge supporter. If you want to save a whole lot of time protecting yourself from online threats, use the code and the link in the description to support me.